so you see a big green button.
So with that, my name is actually Anouk Ben-Tchavtchavadze, but Anouk Ben-T is a lot easier. So yeah, my talk today is called Understanding Habits. And for those of you guys that don't know me, and girls, sorry, that don't know me, I've been working in games now for 10 years, from casual to core, and I've even dabbled in some casino. I've worked on Wii, PlayStation, Xbox, next-gen consoles, handhelds, Facebook games, and I now specialize in mobile games. I've worked on a whole bunch of different types of titles, from first-person shooters to casual titles to resource management, a bunch of different stuff. I've been lucky enough to say that I worked at Ubisoft for a while, Zynga, GSN Games, and I now work at King. I have a tiny little team that I'm working on out of San Francisco, and we are trying to crack the code on making instant games, so making games on messenger platforms. Lots of different challenges with that right now, but it's a lot of fun and really super social by nature, which is one of the reasons why we've been thinking a lot about habits as of late. So on to the talk now, and I want to start with a bit of an overview of what I'm going to be talking to and what I'm hoping you guys will all be able to take away. So first and foremost, what is a habit from a psychological standpoint? We're also going to look at how habits are actually formed. I also really want to focus on a very important part about habits is that teaching and learning are super effective to creating new habits and behaviors. And we're also going to look at some tips and tricks to help with that. And then finally, we'll have a look at what type of rewards work best to reinforce these type of behaviors that we want our players to have. So habits, super important for us specifically as game developers, specifically to pretty much use as tools to help our players have better experiences in our games. Understanding how habits are formed and reinforced can help guide players in frictionless manner and focus on fun in your games. So as game developers and UX designers, all of us in here, we're often tasked with creating these amazing and fun experiences for our players. Some of which, for sure, are super simple, and others are really complex, and they can be difficult to understand and perform. And some, as we all know, are really not intuitive for a lot of our players. So this is where habit psychology can be a helpful tool. We often need to teach players complex and simple behaviors that they need to do and perform over and over to succeed in our games. And in other cases, also to challenge them and keep them interested in our games. So we do this frequently through the use of first-time user experiences, as shown here in the example from Cut the Rope. In this example, we have a clear call to action. The game asks us to perform basically a really simple action, and it gives us a reason to do it. So you basically just slide across to cut the rope, and you deliver candy to the Om Nom. Super cute, simple, easy, fun. We can introduce new behaviors and new actions, basically teach these types of new actions through fatuis, tutorials, animated sequences, cutscenes, narrative content, and even through quests. There's a myriad type of tools that are dispositioned for this. We show our players new skills and behaviors they will need to perform in-game over and over. We trigger these behaviors with certain cues, and we reward them for basically performing the actions. So this brings us really to what the definition of a habit is from a psychological standpoint. By definition, a habit is a behavior which has been repeated frequently. It is performed automatically in response to a trigger or cue in your environment, and it provides a reward that can be either intrinsic or extrinsic. More on those types of rewards later. Most importantly, though, a habit is something that you need to learn. It's not something that you are born with, that you know how to do. It's not instinctual. It's not innate. It's something that you pick up from somewhere, and you've done it many times over, and then you just know how to do it. Examples of this is like waking up and making coffee first thing in the morning, pressing on the brakes when you see a red light, always placing your key in the same place when you get home, brushing your teeth a certain way. There's thousands and thousands of examples of this. Even in game, basically, gameplay, we have different game combos or control screens. For example, many of you in this room have played this game growing up and probably can still remember a few combos. I'm actually really surprised that I can remember a lot of combos, and I can barely remember what I ate for lunch yesterday. A full example of this is a really simple one of the cue routine reward loop here. Basically, I get a cue. In this case, it's a notification. It says, free treasure chest is waiting for you. My general routine is in this game might be different from a lot of your different routines, but my routine is basically to go in, I collect all my chests, I make sure my chest slots are all full. If I don't have all my crown chests, I might basically play a few challenges. There's a bunch of things that I can do. If I've got a clan chest, I might play a few different tournaments with my clan, but my routine is my own, and it depends on what I have available to me in the game. The actual reward part of this is really important because here I actually showed you guys a chest, but that's not actually the reward and the reason why I go in and I perform my routine. The reason why I actually play this game is because I enjoy it, and the reward of playing those games, that's basically what I get out of it. It's not just something physical that I get in the game. So yeah, back to the queue though. The queues don't actually have to be external. They can generally be from in-game feedbacks. It can be UI. UI serves as an amazing queue. So here's another example of like a queue routine reward loop from another type of game that does this really well. So World of Warcraft does a great job at using in-game feedbacks as queues. Getting a player to perform a routine and rewarding them with gold and stuff they need to basically advance in the game is something that they're just amazing at, and they've been doing it forever. In this example, we all easily recognize this NPC as what? Quest giver, yep. So super iconic and recognizable yellow question mark on the top of the head right there indicates that you have an action that you can do. This serves as a queue. The routine is what follows from that quest, and of course there's a reward for completing the quest. Now, the thing that's really amazing about WoW though is how big of a game it actually is, and people have built up such complex routines and habits around how they play. There's so many different types of quests, missions, basically achievements, activities, like a myriad of content for you to basically be able to interact and play with. People who play this regularly or even daily have this down to a science. And when they log in to play, they basically go into a login routine that best matches their character and play style, from starting in their garrisons or completing world quests or doing their daily quests, cooldowns, crafting, so much more. And it's really impressive when you actually look up like a lot of stuff about, wow, it's all about how to maximize your routine so you can get as much gold, and it's documented and it's shared. So routines don't have to be simple and short. Our brains can be trained to perform complex routine, and we do this through basically repeating actions and consequently creating habits. This is because habitual behaviors are actually made in a different part of the brain than where we make and take decisions. So as soon as a behavior becomes automatic in a way, we no longer have to think and make decisions. This is really basically the important part of our brain where we have this capacity to create these habits, and basically this part of your brain takes over, allowing you to perform any complex routine without being mentally aware of it. So consequently, we can reduce cognitive load, and we can allow basically ourselves to enjoy whatever it was that we were doing without any friction. Driving, parallel parking, sports, and even gaming are all a bit of a testament to this. So if you think about parallel parking, when you first learned how to parallel park, you had to recite all of the different moves on how to go about parallel parking. Those of you who parallel park on a daily basis now, do you ever actually think of any of the steps anymore? It's something that you basically queued up, you perform your routine, and you do it without even thinking about it. Being able to perform routines like this through repetition and cues is great for us game developers. We're often challenged by trying to teach new and sometimes complex behaviors, which can initially be unintuitive for our players. These behaviors are learned actions and needed to be able to fulfill on the promise of fun for our players. So how do we do this effectively, really? Well, we need to start with teaching. Therefore, we need to understand how our players learn to be able to effectively teach our players. So, what they say about creating habits is that anything that is very easy to do and rewarding can soon turn into a habit. I'll get back to the easy part a little later, but the thing that I do want us to just kind of sort of modify to this statement, because it's not that simple, really. If you're doing things you hate, you're not going to be doing them for long. So I actually want to rephrase this to something that you enjoy and is very easy to do and rewarding can soon turn into a habit. So it's important to remember that. If you don't like doing something, you're not going to do it for really long. It's very difficult for you to do something that you're not doing. You're not going to be able to turn that into a habit. This is why there's so much research done around the psychology of habit, because everyone's trying to figure out how they're going to incorporate running and fall in love with it and want to do it every day, but it's not that simple because people hate to run. Like, who here likes to run? I maybe see 3 hands, right? Like, so fortunately so, that's not the problem that we have to deal with. As game makers, we're really lucky that games are actually fun. And if we provide fun experiences and put fun first, it's going to be much easier for us to help our players learn and develop routines in our games. If people don't like our games and don't enjoy playing them, they will have a really hard time sticking around and forming habits in them. Similarly, if they don't know how to succeed in the game or how to play a game, they will or if they have like negative experiences or confusing experience even, they're also less likely to play and stay. So, back to what I mean by easy. I just wanted to make sure that I cleared this up because a lot of people are like, well, we don't like easy games. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about game difficulty. I'm not talking about reducing challenge for the player, but I'm talking about it from a psychological standpoint, from what our brain is already easily trained or programmed to do and how we understand and learn things. So how to design with this in mind to improve usability and promote frictionless interactions. There are many, many, many known psychological theories and laws, and they all can basically help to define the way that we understand information and consequently teaching complex things with ease. It's not my area of expertise, so I'm not going to go in detail on all of them, but I do want to make sure that if you guys are interested in this, you go see Celia's masterclass. And also, I do want to basically bring a few of them up so that we can basically just see how this can help us in designing good experiences. And so this will kind of help illustrate the point that I'm trying to make about making things frictionless for the player. First off, the von Restorff effect. Really well illustrated in this image. Does anyone know what this is? It's pretty much, you can guess from the image. It's also known as the isolation effect. It states that when multiple similar objects are present, the one that differs from the rest is the most likely to be remembered. So, quick example, person examines a shopping list. They have multiple items on the list, but one of them is highlighted in green. This law states that pretty much the highlighted item is the most likely to be remembered over all of the other items. So we also know that if something's most likely to be remembered, it's also easier to teach it or to learn it because they can actually remember it. How does this apply to games? Well, a really, really easy, common example, probably the most common seen use case of this is a CTA. If I present you guys all with this, which option do you pick? They're all slightly the same, but they're all slightly different. Do you pick your favorite color? Do you pick your favorite number? The first one, the last one? Lots of different theories and ways that this could go down. But if we look at this now, which one do you think sticks out the most? Right? Really easy, simple stuff. Let's put this into a context of a game and have a look at a case study that was done by one of my UX leads, Ben Kawiichi, from when he was at Farm 1. I worked with him on pre-production for Farm 2 while at Zynga, and we worked on trying to avoid what he liked to call the arms race. You'll see this screen here illustrates really well. So this is Farm 1. For those of you that remember it and that played it, it got to a point where every single feature, quest, pop-up, notification, everything that we basically presented to the user competed for the user's attention, and consequently, nothing stood out. Not even the main star of the show here, which is supposed to be the farm, that's your main interaction point. That's where you're supposed to basically be having all the fun. There were multiple ways that you could do the same action, and the game basically seemed to make you want to do at least 10 things all at once. And whenever, as a UI team or as a design team, they tried to present something to the user that was important, it basically had to compete with everything else. So everything had to be bigger and flashier and better than the last. So how did we approach to basically reduce the arms race, which had become sort of a process and a way of working at Zynga? Well, we started off with the basics. We evaluated current interaction points and information architecture. That allowed us to pretty much simplify and focus, removing redundancies where they were, and the team came up with the motto that everything available all the time is not always best for the user. What that led to was pretty much building systems that were contextual and expandable. Then, when things were really important to the player, we showed one thing at a time. This is what basically the result for Farm 2 was. We tried to simplify the HUD as much as possible. We made sure that the farm, the main place where all the interactions were done, were basically the star of the show. Pretty much, we built in contextual systems that were introduced as the player progressed and leveled up. And when we wanted to make sure that we introduced something new and important for the players, we did this by pretty much focusing on that feature and that feature alone. So this is an example of, like really quick example of a new feature being introduced to the player, where you can see we've dimmed out the rest of the quests as and pretty much the rest of the HUD, anything else that the user could interact with. We would zoom in on what the player needed to focus, so we hit as much of the farm as we could, and we guided players step by step through the actual feature, making sure that the player understood the value proposition and learned how to play the feature. We then rewarded the player for walking through the feature and giving them something that they needed to play, inciting them to play it again. Make sense? In a similar vein, we have Hick's law. Hick's law predicts that the time and effort it takes to make a decision increases with the number of options. So reducing the number of options for a user makes decisions easier for the user. If you're trying to teach someone something and you present them with too many options, you may not be effectively teaching them what you'd like to teach them. I'm not trying to imply here that you should never have more than 4 options available to the player, but if you introduce too many options to the player the first time and expect a quick and easy decision from them, you might want to think about showing them less options and then building up on the options as they learn with what each option is. So here's an example of what I mean. Of course, this isn't the view a new user gets when they play this game. And what you're looking at, for those of you who don't know, seems like a few of you do, this is the world map with all the activities shown. It illustrates amazing breadth of content, and this is a kick-ass fucking thing to look at for an experienced player. But pretty much if you're a new player and you look at this, like, where do you start, right? How do you pick just one? For a player that's trying to discover and figure out what to do next, this is not ideal, and the amount of time it will take to pick one, according to Hick's law, will be lengthy indeed. Next up is mapping. I wanted to discuss this. It's not a known psychological theory of law, but it's, I think, really important to consider when we're talking about good UX. Per Don Norman's design of everyday thing, if a design depends upon labels, it might be faulty. Labels are important and often necessary, but the appropriate use of natural mapping can minimize the need for them. So as we see on the image on the left here, it's unclear what button corresponds to what burner, right? Can anyone tell me what the last button, which one, if I turn that one on, which burner it would turn on? Kind of tricky, right? So wherever labels can seem necessary, consider another design. There are a lot of cases we can try to apply mapping to games, and the one that sticks out to me the most is controllers. Knowing what each button does is a learned behavior, and something that's not actually really intuitive when you stop to think about it. Many of the buttons do not have any clear affordances, maybe except for the trigger button, but still, we do learn really quickly what each button does. So those of us that play on console learn really, really quickly within a few sessions that A is okay, B is back. Right? And generally, we can navigate through a menu by pressing these buttons without the need to look at the labeling or even to think about it. But what happens when a PS4 or an Xbox player goes to play on a Nintendo or vice versa? They can get really frustrated because the mapping is reversed. And I know I end up pressing back when I want to confirm and confirm when I want to go back, and I end up swearing and usually yell out bad UX. So, not to say that there's a right or wrong here, but in both cases, it's a learned behavior that depends on mapping, And natural mapping could help to resolve this. So someone please come up with a new design or make things consistent. Mobile gaming has its own set of mapping issues and also a lot of advantages. Many mobile game developers try to make in-game interactions as natural and intuitive as possible and generally remove labels, keeping mapping of actions to gestures and movements as intuitively as possible. So pinch to zoom, swiping to see more content, dragging to move objects, tilt to control direction are all a little more intuitive due to their natural affordances. This keeps onboarding and teaching to a minimum if done well. So to wrap up this section and moving on, because I'm going to run out of time potentially, I do want to mention that as a general rule, we all know how important it is to continue to push for good UX principles, as they're the key to helping basically us teach our players to understand how to play a game, but also to enjoy products in a frictionless manner. Again, if your players aren't going to be able to easily learn how to play your games, they're not going to stick around to play it. Now let's dive into the rewards part. I promised you I would get here. Rewards play a big part in habit formation, and games are great at making actions feel rewarding. So feedback itself can be the reward as long as it occurs directly after the action is completed. Feedback can also be the cue to start off the next behavior, but the immediacy of a reward to relate the reward to the action is really important in reinforcing the action. Giving yourself a reward at the end of the day, week, or month generally doesn't work to help reinforce a habit. Picture this scenario where you plan on giving yourself a reward every day, at the end of the month if you do something every day. It almost feels like you're suffering through every day to be able to get there, and you have multiple drop-off points, and then if you do drop off, you basically lose all of your progress and you rage quit, right? Long-term rewards are often too large or too infrequent to make a difference. Rewards should not be a prize that you set out to win in the end. They should be a quick boost received basically immediately after you do something that makes you feel good about doing it. So how do you choose the right reward? Well, we talked earlier about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So if you're doing something only for a reward, you're extrinsically motivated. If you're doing something because you like it, you're intrinsically motivated. Generally speaking, rewards should probably never be used to motivate, but they can be used to motivate behavior. They should be used to reinforce it if you want to try to create habits. So if you're doing an action just for the reward, you are much less likely to follow through. The reward should also be something that you can't get without doing basically the action. So that should help to make the action feel good. Rewards need to be given immediately after the action, but also should be directly related. Let's look at the following example here. If I kill a monster, I will then win gold. And with that gold, I can buy stuff. And with that stuff, I'm going to kill more monsters, and then I'm going to win more gold and buy more stuff and kill more monsters and win more gold, and so on and so forth. So this is why most core game loops incorporate the reward as an integral part of the loop itself. The reward is necessary to be able to continue to play and perform the fun action. Also, rewards shouldn't be too large for the action you already enjoy doing, because it actually makes you less motivated to perform that action. So in this example, if I kill a monster and I win so much gold that I can buy all of the stuff, I don't need to kill more monsters. Small and regular rewards reinforce the action and create an extra boost of good feeling that you associate with the action. So to reiterate on good rewards, rewards occur immediately after the action, reinforce the behavior that you already enjoy doing, are actually related to the action, are small and regular. Now that we've gone through what a habit is and what kind of rewards work best to reinforce a behavior, how do we apply this to basically this cue routine reward loop to making games? Well, first off, you need to identify goals and desired behavior. What is it that you're trying to teach your players? Why are they going to want to perform the action? How are they going to benefit for this? Once you've answered all of these questions and figured out how you're going to present this new teaching, you then start with small actions that can be repeated and built up upon. You show them explicitly and basically steps by steps and give them to the player one by one. In this example from Dead Space, They show you how to use the objective system simply to find your next objective. By doing so, they get you to perform and repeat the action. Avoid major changes to current routines. So I did want to touch upon an example from when I worked at Zynga. It's not a project that I actually worked on, but it's something that I got a lot of really insightful learning from, and I thought it was important to share. So poker. It was one of Zynga's first and biggest successes, and it had a very big loyal following for many years. It was live for a very, very long time, and consequently, it looked really outdated. The team was really excited to work basically on a way to revamp this, and they basically launched a few years back an update to it, which looked like this. The new look and feel was actually received with a lot of mixed feeling by its player. The issue was that the game was not the same anymore. It looked really good, but it didn't feel like the same game anymore. All pre-existing habits and cues were gone. So if you basically want to change your game, consider building up slowly on these changes, and think about the best time to add a new behavior is immediately after an established sequence of behaviors. So in conclusion, remember, when designing new features or games, start with basically small actions, rinse, repeat, eliminate the need to take decisions, make things easy and intuitive, think frictionless, and show things one at a time. And then finally, use small and regular rewards by showing continuous progress and positive feedback. And that's it.